Really quickly, I want to go back to our guessing game, the number guessing game. You all remember that from last week or the week before? The number guessing game is interesting, but several of you even indicated that, hey, it's kind of frustrating that they only get one guess, right? So if I run this, run the guessing game, I have the number guessing game. I guess number 6. I guessed right. What luck. I'm so good at this game. Let's try again. Okay, so I guessed too high. The secret number was 1. It would be nice if the number guessing game allowed me to have more than one guess. Like 3 guesses would be nice, right? So here's the code for the game as it stands right now. Let's just walk through it really quick. So I'm importing the random module, and I'm setting up variables for the minimum number of the guessing, the maximum number of the guessing, and then I'm using those in the secret number. So between 1 and 10 here. And this generates obviously a secret number that the computer is using for that guess. So the reason I'm using variables instead of hard coding those numbers here is that it allows me a couple of things. First thing it does is it allows me to easily change the difficulty of the game, right? So I can change the difficulty by making this range bigger. But it also allows me to put those numbers in the F string here. So if I had hard coded, if I put 1 and 10 here, then if I wanted to change the difficulty of the game, I have to change it here too. This way, I change it in one place at the setup, and I know that it changes it throughout my code. So you're always kind of thinking of ways that you can save yourself time. So after the setup, it welcomes the user. It just says, welcome to my guessing game with a little fancy interface here. Asks for the number, converts it to an integer, and then here is the if, else that says if the guess is bigger than the secret number, you guess too high. If it's smaller, you guess too low. If they didn't guess too high or too low, then they guessed right. Now, obviously, there's a lot of extra work that I could do there. I could first check to make sure that it was inside the range. Like if I say between 1 and 10, and they guess 100, that's kind of, it's something I probably shouldn't allow if I want the game to be really tight. But I'm just keeping it kind of simple here because I don't want to overcomplicate this because I'm about to overcomplicate it in a different way with a loop. So the last thing I do here is reveal the secret number. So let's use a while loop to allow the user to guess 3 times. Okay, so I'm going to first say int number guesses. So they get 3 guesses. Again, I'm using a variable to represent that because it allows me to change it later or do whatever I want. So I'm going to welcome the user only 1 time. I don't want to welcome them every time they do a guess, but I do need to ask for a guess every time. So the logical place for me to put my loop is to start it here because this part of the code is the part that I want to do 3 times, right? Unless they guess correctly. So I'm going to put while, and I need a number of guesses, but I also need a variable to track how many times they've guessed. Int attempt. So the attempt number, they'll start on the first attempt. So while int attempt is less than int number of guesses, so while the attempt that they're on is less than the total number of guesses that they get, we're going to do this loop. So attempt starts at 1. They'll guess. I'll increment it to 2. They'll guess. I'll increment to 3. They'll guess. And then when it gets to 4, they run out of guesses. Okay? So there's that. And now I don't want to reveal the secret number every time they guess. That would be kind of silly. So I can see kind of by looking at my code, this is the part that I want to repeat with each guess. So now I just take that, oops, and indent that. And then the last thing I have to do, because right now this is an infinite loop, because I haven't told it to make this number bigger ever. So after each guess, they need to add 1 to the attempt number. And I'm going to do a little extra here. I'm going to tell them which attempt they're on. This is easy because I put those in variables. Of number of guesses. Okay, so let's run this and see how it goes. Okay, so it says attempt 1 of 3, 4. I guessed too low. Attempt 2 of 3. Okay, so there's a little glitch, right? Because it only gave me 2 guesses. So if I want to do this, then I need to say less than or equal to. Let's run this again. This is a normal part of the coding process. This is why you test your code and pay attention to what's going on. So if I do 2, go 3, still too low, let's go 6. I guess too high, the number was 4. If I had just kept with my other pattern. Now, we're almost there, but I would say this game has one sort of shortcoming, and that is if I guess right on the first attempt, it's going to keep looping for 2. It's going to make me guess right 2 more times. So if I guess right, what should I put under guessed right to get out of this loop? What? A break. So I'm going to throw a break right here. And now it says I guessed right, and it will immediately go to the secret number. Now, I'm not going to sit here and make you watch me play the game 600 times till I guess right, because the odds of me guessing right are probably pretty slim. So I'm going to do a little cheat code here. For testing purposes, this is something you might want to think about doing. If I just print the secret number up here, then I can test that condition quite easily, because my secret number, lean just to the right a little bit. There we go. Secret number is right here, number 1. Printed it for myself. Now I'll guess the wrong number. I guessed too high. Secret number was 1. I guessed right. The secret number was 1. So now I've got a complete game. Now, that's like 90% of the way there. If I want to take it a little bit further, and you want to think about this, how is it possible to ask the user if they want to play another round? Okay, so once they guess 3 times, can we say, would you like to play again? And if they would like to play again, then it resets. The computer chooses a new number. It resets their attempt number, and it starts this loop again. Well, I'll give you a hint, right? The minimum and maximum numbers, these things don't change. Those are variables that don't change. And in fact, later on, we'll identify those variables differently. We'll actually call them constants. And the names would be in all caps. We're not going to worry about that right now. But each time the user plays a new round of the game, they have to go back to attempt number one. And they would choose it. The computer chooses a new secret number. So what I might do is put this here, and I am going to very quickly shrink the font down. I know you won't be able to read it, but I want you to see what the structure looks like at a high level. I think I just need to shrink it. I'm going to go a little bit further than that. Okay, I know that's too small to read, but you can see where I'm at. I've got my original loop here. I'm going to put all of this code inside another while loop. So I've got all of this, even the revealing the secret number, inside that loop. And this will loop infinitely. Right now, it will just start it over every time. Every time the game ends, it will just go back to the beginning and do it again. Well, we want to give the user the option to not do that. So I'm going to say int again, or let's go str again. Str again equals input. Let's zoom back in here so we can see what I'm actually typing. Seeing what I'm typing is always helpful in a computer class. Play again, yes or no. Okay, so I'm asking them if they want to play again. And I say if str again, we can make this lower just to make it a little bit better, equals yes, or let's say if it's anything other than yes, then we are going to break. So we've got anything other. If they say no, if they say maybe, if they hit anything other than a lowercase y or an uppercase y, which gets converted to lower, str again is not equal to y, then we break. Then it ends that loop. So let's run this, and I'm going to do one thing for the user interface only, and I'm going to put an else there. And if they choose yes, then I'm just going to print a few blank lines just to like visually start a new game. So let's run that. Okay, so in attempt 1 of 3, 2, 8. Let's guess the right one. We guessed right. The number was 8. Play again? Yes. Welcome to the guessing game. It chose 8 again. Tricky move by the computer. So if I use up my 3 attempts, I guess too low. The number was 8. Play again. Yes. And it chooses a new game. And now I get to choose. And oops, I accidentally hit 4 instead of yes. And now the game has ended. So it broke out of that second level. So what you need to remember with looping and breaks is that break is always going to break out of whatever loop, the immediate loop that you're in. So if you're in a loop inside of a loop and the innermost loop has a break, it'll break out of the innermost loop, but you'll still be in the outside loop. You need another break to break you out of that one. So break only breaks out of one loop. So see, when I guessed right, it broke out of the innermost loop, but it still allowed me to choose whether or not to play again. So you can see we're already getting into some pretty cool things. What you have to be really mindful of when you're doing this stuff is the indentation structure. Because if you don't indent right, you're going to confuse yourself, but you're also going to confuse Python. And let's face it, Python does not like to be confused. It gets very angry.